Hello, everyone. This is David Alfred Ostrowski, and this is my demo for the deployment of a Golang application to the Google Cloud Platform. So I'm at the Google cloudgoogle.com console for the Google Cloud Platform. I've logged in already using my Gmail credential, and I would recommend before using this to examine the terms and conditions and be aware of the billing, go through the billing, perhaps look at some of the tutorials and set up the appropriate billing notices so you can have a positive experience and manage your account and any of the costs that are associated with it, whether it's towards your free credits or whether you're beyond that. So be very careful. And I'm going to also point out that when you have a project instantiated with an exercise such as this, that you're not going to be keeping anything up and running in that deployed fashion. It's in your best interests and a recommended practice to disable billing for all your projects, as I will show you right now. So here I'm at the console, and or at the front interface, I'm going to go to the console. One of your starting points is going to be to create a project. And you will be clicking up here in the upper left of the screen, right next to the Google Cloud icon. Now here I have a project, W project, which is already set, but let's go through. I'm going to click on this and show you where to go. If you haven't set up any projects prior, you would be clicking on new project and you would set a project name. You would make an association to your billing account, and then you would press create, just as simple as that. So I'm not going to do that because I have it, again, I have a project associated. So again, I would recommend in some other cloud platforms, sometimes it's in your interest to delete everything, let's say Azure or AWS. The Google Cloud Platform doesn't have a tendency to delete your projects immediately or your billing accounts for that matter. So, and you are limited of the number of projects associated with the billing account. So it's in your best interest to, once again, limit your number of projects to those that you're going to specifically needs. Perhaps use a project for more than one experiments if you're in an experimental stage, and keep your billing accounts to one or just as a bare minimum, because I believe your limitation is 5 projects per billing account. Once again, the disabling of the billing will turn off the accountability for your costs. It can schedule for any of your files to be eventually deleted within 30 days. So there's a concern that you need to be aware of. Okay. But for throwaway experiments, once again, the best practice is to go into disable billing. Let me go into that once again initially to show you how to take a look at that. So if I go into billing and I just searched on bills, it's the fastest way for that I know of how to get there. So it says this project has no billing account because I have prior disabled that. So I'm going to click on manage billing accounts. Here I have three billing accounts and I have my project listed here. Once again, if you see, all my billing is disabled here. This is how I'm going to start this experiment, and this is how I am going to complete the experiment. Now, your billing amounts, whether again towards your free trial period or over and above that, is not in real time. So if I turn it off immediately, disable the billing, I may have a little bit of time it will need to update. So it won't give me, I may have a little bit more than the billing amount, but it is saying from that time forward that it will not be charging me for any of the services. And of course, it will be scheduled for deletion. So it's in your best interest to back things up to GitHub if you have something that you developed of interest that you want to preserve. And once again, the goal here is to make this a positive experience and not be surprised that you've burned through your free allocation or used up more resources than you planned. Here, to be able to accomplish this task, I do need to enable my billing account. So I have the W project. I'm going to click over to the right here under Actions, and the 3 periods it has change billing. I'm going to change billing, and I'm going to set it to my initial account. That's where I had my free trial period. I'm going to click Set Account, and it sets it to the initial My Billing account with that set project. So now I can go back and proceed with the demo. So the next thing I'm going to do is bring up the Activate the Cloud shell. So on Activate Cloud Shell, it brings up a shell right at the lower bottom of the screen here. Now my project has been activated already. If this is the first time bringing up the Cloud Shell, it may not be activated. So there's a couple commands that you can do to list your project and set your project accordingly. Now you're not going to be setting the project to the project name, but rather the project ID. Let's do the Google Cloud projects list. That's G Cloud at the Cloud Shell terminal. So I'm going to say G Cloud projects list. And it's going to prompt me for an authorize. I'm going to authorize that. Once again, if I have not set up a billing account, this may not return with a project that I've allocated earlier. So I have my projects here, and I have the project ID and the associated name project number. I'm going to be concerned in this case with the bottom here, the W project 365321, and that is with the project that I have. So it's already set, but I'm going to run through the command just in case you're going through this the first time and you want to make sure, or perhaps you had another project allocated and you want to start with a new project. So it's not going to hurt me at all to reset the project. So I'm going to do G Cloud. Config set project. And now my project ID, which is W project 365321, just like that. So it updated the property. I can do the projects list, but what this will do, it will reset what's highlighted in yellow here, which was already highlighted to that. So I could set to another project and go backward, but I think you know a command and know what you need to do. Great. So when I go into my shell, I have a lot of different activities that I performed here. You can do this in your main directory. For me to have a clean start and example here, I'm going to set a separate directory. I'm going to make a new directory up and do everything in the context of that. So I'm not playing around with any of the earlier demos and show you what to do if you're starting from scratch. So I'm going to create a directory, and I'm going to do that with the Unix command makedir. And I'm going to say makedir, and I'm going to call it deployment demo. And I don't think I have another name like that. So let's go with that, deployment demo. And I'm going to set to that directory, deployment demo, and there's my full directory path. Now, instead of copying the related files that I want to allocate to the Google Cloud, I'm going to just clone my GitHub repository. And you should have access to this. If you don't, feel free to contact me and I'll give you the necessary link where you can see that right here. So I cloned my repository, so I don't have to bother copying the commands, but we're going to go take a look at both the files that are cloned here. So I only have 2 files before we proceed. So let's go into, so here I have a project directory called deploy Go web server to Google Cloud Platform. So I have a couple documentation files, README and run instructions. Those are just text files for documentation that came along with the repository. The main file here that I'm going to deploy is a nominal Golang web server. So let's take a look at that. I'm going to use the VI editor to take a quick look at that. And we can step through this line by line. So here are about 10 lines of code. Basically, I bring in the package main and I import two files for the networking, the TCP and NET HTTP libraries, respectively, that give me bare bones web server functionality. I have a single function that's going to be invoked on a GET style request to my web server that's going to be up and running. It's going to manage an object with the HTTP response writer and the request appropriately. With the writer, I'm going to respond with a byte array that just says the basic hello world, hello net HTTP. It's all managed through the function main. And I'm going to, once again, I'm going to reference the HTTP library, calling the handle function that's going to pass in the hello Go handler. And I have a log that's going to log any errors and essentially manage the server activity where I'm going to have a listen and serve. It's going to handle any type of request on port 8080 from the deployed node that I'm going to manage here. So that's it, just a simple Golang web server. I'm going to deploy that to the cloud and it will be able to be accessed anywhere through the internet. The other file of interest is a YAML file, and let's take a quick look at that. I can just cat that file with just a few lines of code. Here, the YAML file is a text configuration-based configuration file, just saying I'm going to use the runtime Go, and I'm setting a few environmental files, FIEX, configuration, and manual scaling. So I'm not going to get into the details of these, but these are necessary to get this up and running. And you can dig in a little bit details later on. Let's just get this up and running and we can go from there. So at this point, I can just invoke the deploy command. I'm going to say Google Cloud, gcloud app deploy app YAML. And I'm going to do this within the noted directory. And I want to point out that I'm using the configuration file to manage the deployment. It's going to prompt me, and I'm just going to default through the deployment. It's going to take a few minutes for it to perform that. And going to need a little patience here, because it's going to take a few minutes for this to happen. And when it completes, it's going to provide a DNS that, once again, a mnemonic that I can use to access it from a browser, or I can perform a curl command. So we're not getting any errors. It looks appropriate. Once again, it can be a function of your YAML request configuration if you have any types of issues. And let's give this a few more minutes here. When they say a few minutes, they mean it. So in the Google Cloud Platform doesn't seem to have an immediate response with even some of the most nominal activities. So this is the starting point, right? So you can do a basic deployment and be able to access an application, then it can give you a means of deploying more expansive applications and integrating the Google Cloud framework into your applications. And of course, working with the Go programming language, it will allow for a number of efficiencies and a lot of the number of benefits that have been identified earlier. So tempted to pause recording, but again, this shouldn't take too long, and it is important to have an appreciation for exactly how long it takes to do some of these activities, so you don't run out of patience or perhaps think that you're going to get some type of timeout error. In most cases with the deployment, if you don't set up the configuration file, you can have some errors as I have getting this up and running. And I posted the related stack flow in the GitHub repository under that README file, among other things, any of the slight tweaks that I had to do to get this up and running. So we'll give it a few more minutes here. And what I can actually do at this point is get an additional terminal up and running. Now I'm going to use a curl utility. If you're not familiar with, so the curl is going to do a basic request. The curl command in Unix does the functional equivalent of what occurs in the back end of a web browser. So we can, once we have this deployed web server deployed, we're going to run it from this terminal. Then we're going to need at least another terminal. And we can also test it through a regular web browser, and we can see the end result being demonstrated more than once. So again, have a little patience here. And it doesn't take too much longer. This will make for the best demo to sit here and watch the screen. In many cases, if you're running this as a production and leaving it up and running, you may be interested in setting security access as it's deployed here. Once again, you're not limiting anyone's access. If they happen to have that DNS, then they could access your web application. Still churning away with the deployment here. They pause the recording and I can come back on when it's completed. Okay, I'm back. So this took about 2 extra minutes since I paused the recording, just to give you an idea of what it takes. So, and one step that I did forget to mention in this recording is that if you're starting from scratch, you need to install the Golang. The Golang language, and the 2 commands, which I'm not going to go through the install. I'm just going to show them right here. Is that I ran was to do sudo apt update and the sudo apt install Golang go. So I'm not using anything brand new or esoteric. Whoops, it's not the right one. But just doing a basic install of Golang because I am running a Golang web server. So I ran these 2 commands. And again, I'm not going to run to them at the terminal. So I will include these in the instructions with the GitHub, so you can use that to reference as you working to duplicate this demo. So now I'm good to go. Here I'm going to, my demo has been installed. So I'm going to run go run hello go. And to copy in these commands, I'm doing Control C, Control V. I can't really do a cut and paste with Google Cloud Terminal. It's giving me an not responding appropriately. So I'm running the server at this point, and it's just going to sit there until I terminate the command, because it's running in a event-based mode, just waiting for a request. So this is expected for it to just sit there at the terminal. So I'm going to bring up another terminal to to test my web server and get the response. So I can open up a new tab within this project by clicking to the right here where I have a plus, and this will give me another terminal connection, and I can bounce through, as you see here, I can bounce through my two terminal connections and I can add as many as I want. So this makes it very convenient. What I do need to run the other terminal is I need to get where the deployed service is, and I can see that right here. So if I can copy this without interrupting which I just did, I did a copy, and I think that I was able to copy that appropriately, which I was. So here I copied it to my notepad editor, and I'm going to stage my next command here that I'm going to run in the other. So it created a DNS for me. Okay, and this is my newly deployed node on the Google Cloud Platform serving my application. And this is at port 8080. So make sure I get the port right. So let me run this in the next terminal here. Oops. It doesn't appear to be responding. Let me do a preview here. Preview on port 8080. So this worked appropriately. This gave me the hello nut. It gave me the appropriate response. Let me see if I can use this DNS and go back to my curl command. Okay, so that just brought up a web server there. Okay, well, I was expecting this to work in a similar fashion, but I was able to invoke that. Let me try it one more time, make sure that I didn't copy an oddball character, or for some reason not able to access this. I should be able to put this into a browser just in the same fashion externally. Okay, this may have a security restriction, and because here I have authorized user, so I think that this is the preferred way without going through any additional security restrictions. So there you have it. We can run this again and you can see the necessary output. So, and you can configure it as such, and we could cover that at a later point in time. So um, that's the demo. Now, what I want to do before we finish, as mentioned earlier, is shut down the web server and, most importantly, go into billing. And as I mentioned, to give due diligence to the management of your accounts. I'm going to go to manage account, click on my projects, and I'm going to click on my actions, and I'm going to disable billing. Make sure you do that before you proceed. Just don't shut down your computer and leave, because this will be charged against your account. Okay, again, whether free or otherwise. So what did we accomplish? Okay, we were able to deploy a web server written in a Golang to the Google Cloud Platform. And we were able to start up that web server and invoke that from a not only a curl command, the Unix prompt, but also from a separate web browser here with an authorization parameter. So they did provide a DNS, but you would need to set additional security to be able to directly access that. So here again, it did give you a set level of protection, but we're able to do the web preview, allowed us to give us the quick view of the port. You have to make sure again that it may default to an 8000 in many cases. So we set it to 8080, so you want to make sure that you're at the right port for it to read it appropriately. So thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the demo, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Thank you. All right, bye now.